Hello and welcome. Today's project is the graduation album in a box. This is somewhat of a repeat of a tutorial, but I'm going to do the insides different. It's the 8x8 box. And I did want to show you the paper line from Accolade. This is the new graduation collection. So it's a gray tone, sepia, brown, just very vintage. So the one thing that I'll be using is the gold with it. So this is called Mustard Seed 1 from Accolade. I might throw in some Bo Bunny, some of their new paper lines in the back. So it's kind of a taupe, grayish taupe. Really cute cut aparts with this collection. Grid sheets, filigrees. One thing that really drew me to this line was that it was a little bit on the older side. I'm just separating my papers as I go. It's a little bit on the older side, which is nice for your high schoolers and college graduates. This is the yearbook page. I just love it. We've got keys and keyholes and black and white, well, kind of the black and sepia stripe with lettering. These sheets are always my favorite. This is great to put it in shadow box. Then you can put some memorabilia from high school. And look at the crinkled paper. Then we have the bricks. Fun to do some layouts and graffiti. Then on the back we have graduation definitions from the thing that none of us ever use anymore called the dictionary. See, I couldn't even remember. Graduation hats and keys. Love it. Then we have smaller graduation on the back. Polka dots. And the scholar. Love the plaid. Then we have the globes, clocks, keys, and notebook paper. Very vintagey, very already, it looks like it's, you know, kind of tea coffee stained. So that's what we're going to be using. Be using some of the gold, and you'll be able to put with this just about any color that you want. So let me show you. These are the new lines from Bo Bunny. I have not completely opened them. They're the new double dot damask. So there it is in vanilla. The one I also really liked, which I was going to use, is the red, because the red looks really good with it. Well, it's called Wild Berry Damask. But we'll put those aside and we'll see. Right now, I'm really liking the mustard seed. And we're going to start with our base of the box. The nice thing about this box is that there is no chipboard, and yet it is sturdy. And I'm using the artisan cardstock. Everything can be bought in our store at Country Craft Creations. We'll even have this up as a kit. And we need to start with 2 pieces of 12 by 12 cardstock. And what you're going to do, you can see I've already scored. You're going to score it 2 inches or 5 centimeters all the way around on all 4 sides. And you'll do that to both pieces. Now, if you need, and that was very simple, your scoring. There's a complete tutorial on the box on my, here on my YouTube. It was when I did the Christmas box. So if you need, you can look that up, but it's the exact same thing. So what we're going to do first is on these 2 pieces is we're going to cut these 4 corners out. And you want to keep them square. So if you want to use your cutter, I just cut them by hand. And I do cut to the side of my score line so I can just get rid of that mountain. I don't like it to be hanging around. So I'm going to go to the right side of the mountain and just cut it right off. And the same to the left here. by hand. So we'll grab our second piece and repeat. The reason I went with my album in a box, I thought this is a really great gift for the graduate. You may even have some old vintage graduation pictures, and I do of my father, and they'll be perfect with this paper, but it seals up. You have a box. They can just store it on a shelf and also put some graduation cards in here. This one will be different on the inside. We are going to have a pocket, and we're going to have hinges. We're going to do it a little bit different than my graphic 45. I did the Christmas winter wishes. But, I mean, it's very similar, but a little different. Now what you want to do is take your 2 pieces of cardstock, and it doesn't matter which end. We're going to just connect these together. So we have this center section, and I'm going to use my art glitter glue. When I have to stop the camera, you can pretty much guess that it's Wilbur or Beagle getting into something like he is right this moment. So we want to add our adhesive. Line that up just to your score line, but you want it to be even side to side. Check both sides for the adhesive. So that now will become our hinge. So when I'm double matting, what I'm doing first, it's going to cut this at 7 7/8 by 7 7/8. Then it's up to you if you want to double mat, maybe with just another piece of black, or you can use your pattern papers. You're really not going to see them except inside of the pocket. So I'm going to double mat with the keys. I'm going to cut my mustard at 7 7/8 by 7 7/8, and I'll cut this piece at 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. So we'll have a little border of the gold showing, and you can even go smaller if you'd like. I'm going to grab my chocolate. I was using red, so we don't want that on the paper. And I am going to take another 1/8 of an inch off. So I'll cut it down to 7 5/8. So we can add a little more of that color. There we go. And I'm using the chocolate. You could even use black. Just needed a little refreshing. When you double mat like this also, like I mentioned, it does strengthen your cardstock and your box. Do apologize. Nothing's wanting to work, and I actually have everything ready. It's just for some reason not coming together. There we go. I am just turning this to the side. It's easier for me to work without that big long, so you can actually put this all together if you wanted in sections and then put your hinge together, making sure everything fits great. I'm going to actually go clean my glue. Okay, we got the matting done. Now we need to make the accordion pocket. So for the accordion pocket, I cut my cardstock at 10.5 by 5. So the first thing we want to do is on the 5-inch side, score it 1/2 inch. Turn it to your 10.5-inch side and score it 1/2, 1 inch, 1.5 inch. Then we're just going to turn it around to the other side and score it 1/2, 1, and 1.5. This will create our accordion pocket. Before we start folding, down here we want to just take out these 3 squares. We don't need them. We want an expandable pocket that will give us room to, put those cards or graduation announcements in. So we're going to fold up that 1/2 inch on the bottom. And then on the sides. So the one furthest away from you, I fold that one away. Then I fold the middle one towards myself, and then the last one away. And we'll just repeat with the other side. So away, towards you, and then away. Or however you like to fold those. Now the bottom will go inside, and there are hundreds of ways to make these. So if you have a different way, of course, you can make them that way. Now the thing is, it's going to sit basically on the pattern paper matting, and that gives us room on the sides for our box to fold up. Just going to pull that over a little bit and make it more even. So if you need to straighten up anything, now's the time. That one looks good. So first I'm going to add just a little bit of adhesive right there. angle that just a hair. It was in the way of the hinge. I said it's just a tiny amount. Now, just on this last one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to cut them all, just this last one. Mine was hanging off the side just a hair. Let's trim that corner. Mine line up. I forgot the bottom here. My pocket lines up with the matting. Pretty much so. There we go. See, now we have plenty of room on each side for our flaps. So we have a 7.5 inch. The width is 7.5 inch. Now I just want we're going to make our pocket piece just touch right here, which is going to be the flap. So I'm going to cut mine at 6.5. I do want it to come way down. I'm going to cut it 6 inches. Take that back. So 6 by 7.5. You'll need another piece of cardstock. Now, you will have that half inch hinge that shows, and this was just kind of a design flaw that I should have fixed beforehand. But I am going to be putting a strip of the cardstock, so I really liked how it turned out. But you can put it underneath your matting, and I do apologize. I know I should have probably pointed that out at first, but I got started on this album and kind of goofed there. So it will sit here at the top. The whole thing is I wasn't planning on doing a tutorial, and you probably can tell. I wasn't at first, but because it's a brand new paper line, all of a sudden I got a message, please make sure you do a tutorial on it. And so I had already kind of started, but it still turned out okay. So after we do our matting, see how that shows right there? Well, that's okay, because I'm going to put a strip. In fact, we have, let me show you, the wonderful stickers. We've got 3 different ones to choose from. We have a stripe, and actually this one will look really good. So we already know this is 7.5. I'm going to put this in my cutter really quick. And my big cutter's over here to the side. And I just have to move it in because I don't want the stickiness to stick on my cutter. Then I'll just put this little piece back. Now this is going to be a little bit shorter than the half inch of my hinge, but that's okay. And I am going to use glue. This is pretty sticky as it is. I just want to make sure that it's going to be sticky for a long, long time. I'm going to hang it over the edge. Just a little bit. will want a large magnet or something for your closure. Now you'll see how nice and wide that pocket is. So you can get quite a few cards in there. Graduation announcement, anything that you want to save. So I'm using the basic gray large magnets. Remember to talk loud. For some reason, the sound doesn't always pick up. It always picks up the sound you don't want it to pick up, right? Let me put this down first. And around my corners. And one thing I want to do first, because this is going to be a large magnet, I don't want it to pull my bottom one off. And there we have our pocket. Actually, that looks really cool. It doesn't look out of place at all. So there we have the inside, the top part, and it's nice and secure. And let's make our pages. So for your pages, you're going to cut sorry, this is the I was looking at this one just for my page sizes, and I need to get it out of the way. You're going to cut two pieces that are 6 1/8 by 8 1/8. So let me go ahead and cut those first. Okay, those are my 6 1/8 by 8 1/8. Then you want two pieces 7 1/4 by 7 1/8. Okay, now we want to cut, I'm going to show you on this album the pages. So we have, these are the two we just cut. So you can make these all various sizes, these kind of pages, and they're really nice, like you saw in the graduation. Just don't have it close hand to grab. So you can make these any size. The whole thing will just depend on that hinge in the back. So what I'm going to do for this one, I want to cut two pieces now. No, one piece at 6 1/8 by 7 1/8. First of all. And then your next piece is 5 1/2 by 8 1/8. Now the pieces that we just cut, see, they're these longer, narrow ones. I'm actually going to cut another one. I do want to. So I'm going to cut another 6 1/8 by 7 1/8 and another 5 1/2 by 8 1/8. Quarter. Gosh, do you ever have those moments you're just thinking, I don't know what I'm thinking. Okay, then we've got our 8 1/8 by 6 1/8. So we want to start with our, see how one's wider than the other? And that's your 8 1/8. 8 1/4 by 6 1/8. So I'm going to start on my 6 1/8 side, and I want to score at 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to turn it and score at 1/2 inch on the two short sides, just like we're making a pocket. And then on my second one, on the 6 1/8 side, go ahead and score down. And then the 8 1/8 side, you're going to score on both sides. So it looks like that. Some of the dried glue is showing up on my black cardstock. Drives me crazy. Okay, I'm going to just score up those two ends. Now you want to grab the second piece, that's 7 1/4 by 7 1/8. And I want to show you, you're going to actually make sure which side it fits perfectly on. Because this now comes out to be your 7 1/8, and they're really close, so you want to make sure it's on the correct side. Excuse me. In the pocket, we're going to score that under, but you want them to match, and then this becomes our hinge. Now, one thing I want to show you is you can cut this down if you want. If you want more of a space here so that you can see the mats, but you can't move it down because you need that full amount for your hinge. So actually, I'm going to take my cutter on this one, because I'm going to have this one be a little different, and I'm going to cut 1 inch off the top, not the bottom where you've scored. And you don't have to do this. I just want, let me show you, I want it to look like that. So one thing I'm going to have to do, because I need to place this correctly because of our hinge, it's like a self-making hinge at the bottom. So I need to make up for that 1 inch, and that's where I need to place this pocket. And that's the wrong side. Again, make sure you're doing it on the right side. That 1/8 of an inch is just enough to make a difference. Okay, let's go ahead and fold up the bottom. Just like we're making just a normal pocket. Now, burnish those once more so they're nice and flat. Add our adhesive to all 3 hinges. I'm going to work upside down to my mark so that I make sure it's easier for me to have it over here on the left-hand side. That's exactly where I want my hinge or my page to go, because the bottom now is my hinge. And you'll find your dry diaper wipes really help you glide over your cardstock so much better than your fingers. And if there's any glue coming out, you can fix it immediately. Bone folder or your spatulas, whatever you like to use. I'm going to go down inside there. And I do have a little buckling here, so I'm just going to reburnish that hinge and help it to lay down. And once you mat your pages, if you have a gap like I do, it lays right down. Now this becomes the hinge, so let me show you. You want to put this back in your scoreboard, and you may have to move this a little bit to get it on a score area, and it doesn't matter where it is. You just want to get right next to the bottom of the pocket. So move it if you have to until you can get your bone folder right up to the bottom of the pocket. That will fold backwards, and now that becomes our hinge piece. And let's do it again. I'll put that. Score those two sides. This one I'm not going to have down that inch. I'm going to leave it right at the top. Little deeper pocket means I can use a deeper, well, I can still use the same size mat. It just gives a little variance. Okay, this one I don't have to worry about marking because I'm going to put it right at the top. No glue anywhere sneaking out there. And my pocket's completely open. And once again, you will have to, oh, this time I don't have to move it at all. Just so we can get there in one of the scoring grooves. And fold that backwards. I'm Butterfingers tonight. So there's two of our pages. Now we want to make those two smaller pages. And this one might throw you off a little bit. So the small one, of course, is basically the base. The top one is the one we're going to score to turn this into a pocket, just like we did before. So you want your two larger ones. And they measure the 6 1/8 by 7 1/8, and so we're going to do a three-sided score starting on the 6 1/8 inch side, 7 1/8, and turn it back to your 6 1/8. Got something in my eye that just won't go away. Again, on the 6 1/8 inch side, half inch, half inch, half inch. Now, on the scoring, in case I don't say it at the very beginning, everything is scored at half inch, unless otherwise specified. So, I apologize. I know I didn't start out saying half of an inch. But everything is scored at half inch on our pockets. So now you can grab the base And I wasn't sure. I thought I was off, but this is no big deal. We just need to cut our bases, and let me write this down. So it is 5 1/8. I put down 5 1/2. So change that 5 1/2 to 5 1/8. That's the only fix we have to do. Not bad at all. So we'll just cut off that little piece. I knew when I wrote it down 5 1/8 did not, 5 1/2 just did not sound right. But I thought we'll leave it until we see. Okay, now this one, you see it's a much narrow pocket. What's fun about this is it, you can put a skinnier tag in there. Double check, do I need to cut it just a little bit more? Don't always trust that Fiskars cutter. Miter the corners. Burnish again if your paper will allow it. Some paper you can't burnish a lot or it does tear, but the linen that we sell at Country Craft Creations does not. Now remember, it needs to go at the top unless you've cut it off like we did the first time. And we need that bottom for our hinge. See, the Fiskars cutter, my Fiskars is off compared to my large cutter. I try to only use it for small cuts, but it was off a little, but the nice thing is the pattern paper will cover that. Actually get those corners down. And let me make sure no glue is where it doesn't belong. So I have a nice square pocket. And once again, in the scoreboard, we need to make our hinge. Set that with your pages, and we'll grab the next one. So you can see where my Fiskars is off a little. So actually I have some other paper. I'm going to go ahead and cut another piece only because that one's kind of way too short. I'll save that one for a mat. That is much better. check for glue. Had some on there. And let's make our hinge. There we go. Okay. Now I did make these ones a little bit bigger. You'll notice on some other albums I've actually made them smaller, but I wanted the bigger ones. And what we're going to do is stack all of our pages. And you can stack them in the order of however you like. You can also stagger these two, so I will be staggering those. I think I'll start out with this one. Now, the one thing, let me show you here, this to become free moving. I hope that makes sense. And you do not want to miter any of your corners. The only one that, let me show you, and also here, if we put this in the back, this does need to sit on the inside of this hinge. If you put this here and here, you have no way to hide this or camouflage it. So your half pockets have to sit on the inside of that hinge. And then this one I'll bring up to the top here, and then this will be my first page. But first we have to move this, and I'll move the bottom, and we're going to put these two guys together. And so these are the two that I'm just going to call our whole pages. Okay, we want those to be even. And that is why the hinges are so much larger. You know, these hinge pieces, if you're using the art glitter glue, it will dry clear unless you make a mess like I just did. Let me grab a wet wipe. Save those for later. And if you're cleaning it up, I can't guarantee any paper but the linen. You can get it moist. It will come off, but I can't guarantee that on, you know, any other papers you use. So, okay, let's put this one at the top. So let's add our adhesive. And it will sit just about a 1/16 of an inch, just barely away from your fold here. And you won't see these because we're going to cover them with paper, and I am making one heck of a mess tonight. And I don't usually make it this big of a mess, but it'll all be covered. Make sure that's down. And these will all loosen up as we use it more. Now this one, like I mentioned, has to sit on the inside here, because when it comes back this way, see, this will be covered with paper. Take it a little easier on the glue. I know, I grabbed so many different tools. Okay, and you don't even have to have a magnet if you don't want a magnet on any of these, but if you do want it to be tidy, I like to put one on this first one. But the weight of your cardstock as you're working with this holds it down. Oh, I have 2 plus. I have some strange magnets. They're not lining up because I took them out of different packages. I'd almost say there's going to be a full moon. Well, the way things aren't going together. All right, we'll play with those later and figure out what's going on. Woohoo, we did it. So actually, I think I'll put it right here. Like I said, I think there's a full moon tonight. Much better. And there we have our set of pages. And then we'll just want to make our mats for them. Now, if you grab the book to show you, you cannot, we cannot mat it first. The way the hinges sit, I mean, we have to mat it first. We really can't put this underneath because it has to come in order to have room for the hinges. So we want to mat this piece just like we did the top. So I'll take my mustard and I'm going to cut this the 7 7/8. And I used the keys at the top. I think I'll go with the brick. So I'm going to cut this 7 5/8 by 7 5/8. That looks really cool. Now, if you've never seen the spectrum, see the back has a different texture to it. Not texture, but design. So you can choose the stripes or the texture. And there's those dictionary words for graduation. That's really cool, too. We'll put our matting down, and then we do need to do the matting for the top and the bottom. And the reason is, once we put the pages on, we don't have a flat surface to work anymore. So we're going to have to do the same. And I'm going to do the exact same, this type of matting, and I'll show you which papers I use, but I won't do it on camera because you guys know how to do that. We're doing the exact same thing, but we're going to do it on the front and the back. Let's get this down, and then I'll show you what I'm going to use for my cover. which is the top of the box. Now, once you get all this matting, you have now 5 layers of paper. So you're going to see how strong your box has become. Okay, let me show you one other thing. All of these pieces are going to be double matted. We don't want to mat them yet because we need to put magnets on. But if you want to go ahead, because I'll do mine off camera also, I'm going to cut the gold paper, which is the mustard seed. I'm going to cut them at 1 7/8 by 7 7/8. And you're going to want 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 pieces. Then you're going to also pick out what you want for your box on the outside. But you don't want to mat them till we come back on camera. You can go ahead and prepare your matting just like we did here. And you're going to do 1 7/8 by 7 7/8 of the mustard. And then your top piece will be 1 5/8 by 8 5/8, or however much of a border you want to show. So now we need to turn the box over while we have a flat surface. And we need to do the top and we need to do the bottom the exact same way. So cut, if you're using whatever your contrast is, so I need to cut 2 more pieces of my mustard seed, 7 7/8 by 7 7/8. And for the bottom, I'd like to use, something that's not, because it's the bottom. So I'm going to use the polka dots on the bottom, and this will be my 7 5/8 by 7 5/8. And for the top, gotta have the graduation caps, 7 5/8 by 7 5/8. So I'll get all my pieces cut, and we'll be back on camera and put them together. But like I said, don't do the box flaps that are 1 7/8, because if you do and you don't put down your magnets, you will be very disappointed. So we'll be back and we'll get those all finished. Okay, I have my top done. Whoops, and the camera is in the wrong place. Okay, I have the top done. And the bottom has the polka dots. So now, I did most of my strips, so I'm going to do 2 on camera. And then we're going to add our magnets. And it does take 6 of the large. So I cut these the 1 7/8 by 7 7/8. Then 1 5/8 by 7 5/8, because I wanted more of the gold border to show. And one thing I found when doing these, and if you're using glue, a wet adhesive, it really does work well with the spatula, because it flattens everything out, and then they're nice and flat for you. So let's do the second one, and then we're going to put our magnets on. See, this doesn't take very long at all. It just looks like it does. And repeat. So I didn't do these on camera because I did not want to do 14 of these. I'm sure you did not want to sit through me doing 14 of these. And there they are. So let's grab our box and grab our magnets. Now the only other option, if you don't want to use magnets to close this, would maybe be a belly band, but you are going to have this kind of flap here. So you really do want magnets for this project. This is the top. And you're going to use 2 magnets on each flap. And you want to center them. And I've already put them together, so I have my positive and my negative. Set it in a little bit. Oh, I'd say about an inch, inch and a half from the edge. There, so we don't do things. Then right across on the other set of flaps. The main thing is you just want to center them on each flap. And then here on the top. So I've just put all my magnets to start here at the top. Next, I'm going to take, if you're using the basic gray, I'm going to take the backing off. And one thing I'm going to do, because this is a little tricky, I'm just going to add a dot of my adhesive, wet adhesive glue. That way it gives me kind of a marking. Not worried about the top ones yet, so we're just going to push in the sides. And I know this is kind of hard for you to see on camera. Line it up. And we don't really have a lot, so you don't have a lot to push. So I'm going to move these flaps down and stick my fingers in, tip it upside down, grab a bone folder, one of your spatulas, and get in there as far as you can to push your magnets down. And we'll repeat over here. Little tricky. Oops. They like to pull apart from each other, so they're very strong. Get them, there we go, off to the side. Put my spatula in between there on that one. They like to be a little difficult when we don't have a lot of layers right this moment. There we go, to work with. Oh goodness. There we go. Now, this flap. So this doesn't happen again, I'll add my score tape. Oh, those are shiny, aren't they? Okay. There we go. That one didn't give us quite as much trouble. There. Now we need to do the front. This time, we're going to work smarter. Don't know I didn't do this on the other two. Well, that's not enough. Now this one I'm not too worried about adding the glue. And I didn't even need it before. It was just in case I didn't have a marking. So I'm going to undo my side, keeping it straight. Okay, get our fingers in there. So this one's a little bit easier. And there is the box. And now once again, so let me go ahead and open our box. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put a couple of these down on camera because it's very self-explanatory. So you're going to do the front and the back of each one of the flaps. And let's go around those edges to make sure we get the edges sealed with the glue. For this one, I'll use my smaller. I'm going to go ahead and flip this one over. I'll do this one on camera, and then I'll do two of the sides to show you, and you can continue on that way off camera. And we'll put our pages in. And then when I come back on, after everything's matted, all we have to do is mat our pages and decorate the top of our book. Now you can see how strong that's becoming. Let me keep it to the side. So let me do one over the top of the magnets. Now I'll make sure the paper is all down around those magnets. Now since it's going to attach to this side, I want to do this side with you, and then you'll just go ahead and do all the rest the exact same way. Is your bedroom door closed? Sorry. As you know, we have the puppy, and we have to make sure all doors are closed because he, well, he's 5 months old. He tears everything apart. Now, with the basic gray magnets, they are strong enough to go through all these layers. I don't know other magnets because I don't use them, and I would not recommend a washer with this because of the amount of paper to go through. So now when this is matted and this is matted, and you'll see it holds very nicely with the two large magnets. So now all we have to do is finish. You need to just finish matting all your side pieces. Now with your pages, like I mentioned earlier, they'll sit right there, and this will show, but we will cover it. This is the one I made for camping, and actually I left this one because I was using the Bo Bunny paper, but this one, the next one, will cover. And I want to show you the difference too. So I put two waterfalls in this one. So you can put waterfalls up there. You can put Well, like we did the pocket, and I also did another album in a box like this where we did the plastic sleeves. So now we're going to go ahead and put this down. And I'll show you one thing I like to do here is a photo mat to cover this. So I'm going to leave that back. Now remember, you want to leave space here. I'm going to leave about 1/2 inch. Make sure they're straight. One thing you can do is do another one of these strips, but I did it in my album that I did for Prima, and I made a photo mat that sits in there. So this would be a nice 4x6. Well, I'd make it longer, and then you can put a 4x6, or you can make it bigger, more of a 5x7 on top of there. And I would start with one of my, I'm just checking my scraps. You can even layer the bricks. Now we know that our pages are more than 7 inches long. They're the 7 1/8. So I'm going to cut this at 7 1/4, and I'm going to go 5. And I mentioned how we have the stripes and then we have the opposite side, so that would sit like so. And you can mat this. So this one needs to be 7 1/8. Nope, actually, let's go 6 and 7/8. And then that will fit a really nice 4x6 graduation picture, or you can use a different print. But I kind of like leaving the brick and then, you know, the graduation picture. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. One thing I've been doing, because I'm wanting a little darker, just using the ink pad itself. And I do like this brown. It's good contrast. I'm sorry about the noise. Let me get it away from the microphone. There's so many things you can do to cover that too, so. You could make it into a pocket. Or just your flat photo mat. Decorative edges. And a pocket would be really nice too. And the nice thing with all the monochrome type colors is it won't interfere with the graduation picture. So if you have outside scenery, or if you're using, of course, a different color than the mustard, which I'm using because it has that gold color to it, it won't fight against other colors on your graduation pictures. And I think this is a perfect size because I just want this for the graduation pictures, not a lot of, you know, other pictures. So there's our pages, and you will want to go through, and you should have scraps, plenty of scraps that you can cut down, and then you can make your mats to fit. So just measure Remember, our page is about 7 1/4 or 7 1/8. So I just cut this to 7. Okay, and that fits perfect. And it measures 7 inches by 4 3/4. And so there's one mat. This one, I would probably want it a little bigger because it's going to go down deeper. And I'll cut it the same width, but I'll make it like 5, probably 5 3/8. Okay, these little guys. So we have 5 inches. It's about a 5 by 7. Let's see how those are going to fit. 5 by 7 is perfect. So you can use up your scraps. And let me show you one more thing. So if you have longer pieces, so I have a 5 by 12, and so I cut this 5 by 12. We're going to score this at 6. Round our edges. And there you go. So now you've just increased how many pictures can be put in here. So I can leave this one. Actually, you can get more than one in each because it's so big. So that's what I'll do. That'll give us a lot more room for pictures. So a 5 by 7 and then a 5 by 12. And then go ahead and just cut however many you want. Like I said, these are nice and big pockets. So you can get in more than one in each if you want to do a couple of different ones. So go ahead and finish up. I'll get mine all matted and then we will come back and mat the pages, the pocket, and we'll do our decorating. So I'll see you when I get mine all put together. I'm back to get all the matting done, and I have to tell you a really quick funny story because I mentioned that I just couldn't get things going when we started this and that there had to have been a full moon. It was a full moon. I woke up the next morning, looked out the kitchen window, and there it was. So we did have a full moon. I went ahead and got my matting cut, and on the pages, I'll be using some of the gold. But just for, excuse me, here, I'm doing the matting for... I'm just going to do the single matting. And let me give you the dimensions. So to mat this, the flat front and back, I did cut it at 7 3/8 by 5 5/8. Or 5 3/8. So you'll want 2. And then, sorry, have a puppy in the craft room. It'll be fun, they said. There's times it's not fun. Okay. So again, I cut these at 7 3/8 by 5 3/8. I cut 2. Isn't this awesome? That's the grid paper with this collection line. Has the globes on the back. Now for the pocket down here at the bottom, I cut it at 4 3/8 by 7 7 or 7 3/8. 4 3/8 by 7 3/8. Measure yours. I did have to shorten it just a hair. So let's go ahead and put our matting down. And I did already ink the edges, and I had rounded my corners on my pattern paper. Grab the spatula for these larger areas. Now I do, if you notice, I have my box turned upside down. I mean on itself, so I can work on it flat. I do have to turn it. It'll be easier to work this way with the camera. It'll look upside down. And then there is the writing paper. I just love this one, so I'm going to use it on a lot of the backs, or on the photo mats. Oh goodness, why did... Sometimes the tips give me issues, only because I use them so much and I need to clean them more often. We'll just take that off. Doesn't that look awesome? Now, we don't have anyone graduating this year. We do have a 9th grader, but, you know, that's not really graduation. I actually do have my daughter graduating from college this year. And I haven't decided if I want to save it and then maybe put her high school graduation, and I've got her cards in here, and give it to her. She doesn't watch my tutorials, so I'm not worried about. Hope she doesn't watch them. And so that's what I was thinking of doing. You know, as a mom, we hold on to those. I kept her graduation stuff because we always think, oh, our kids will lose them, but she's 35 now, so I think she can handle it. And I will put all of the memorabilia, her high school stuff, in that pocket, and then I'll put her graduation from college. So this is, I think, really fitting. Just the vintage, and I might even put a picture of her dad and I graduating inside of there. Just some fun stuff like that. Okay, now our pages. Don't you love how easy those were? So I went ahead and I cut a strip, and I am, like I said, double matting. And I'm going to use the dictionary piece in here. So I cut my yellow strip at 4 3/8 by 6 7/8, and pattern at 4 1/4 by 3 1/4. So let's go ahead. What I want to do is go ahead and mat all my double pieces. Now I'm not matting those little pockets we made that are like the half pages. I'm not going to double mat those because I'll use some of the yellow, the gold that I have left on my photo mats. So we're just going to go ahead and do our double matting. Like I mentioned before, a spatula makes things lay so nice and flat when you're using a wet adhesive. Okay, so for page one, your yellow, if you're using a contrasting color, I can get this back up to the scoreboard. So 4 3/8 by 6 7/8. So everything is going to be either 6 7/8 long or 6 5/8 long. And then the pattern paper is 4 1/4 by 6 3/4. So I just took an 1/8 off each time. So that's going to go on that first page. We'll mat all of these like this first and then put them down on the page. I don't like to, when I double mat, do it right on the page, because if you don't get it on straight, it's very difficult to take it off. Okay, So we can set those aside. That's for page 1. Now the back of page 1 is the whole page. So our matting is going to be 5 3/8 of your contrast color by 6 7/8. You'll hear the dog over there just tearing apart a box, sorry. And then 5 1/4 by 6 3/4. Oh, I guess I didn't do the back of that page. That's okay. We can get the back. So, remember we had 2 full pages. And I forgot I need to do the back side. I forgot to do the back. So let's cut another one the exact same size. I don't know if I have any scraps, so I don't know if I'll double mat. Okay, we'll do that in a moment. No, this is the back of page 1. I'm sorry. I'm going to double check. Okay, this is the back of page 1. So I didn't even cut this guy. Let me double check. Maybe I didn't cut the back of page 1. Okay, I didn't cut the back of page 1. So the back of page 1, I like to measure from the inside of there where our page folds, and it measures 5 3/4. So measure yours first. It'll just depend on where it basically falls. So I'm going to cut my matting for this at 5 5/8, my yellow by 7 1/8. No, by 6 7/8. Sorry, I'm getting y'all mixed up. So we're going to put this down for just a moment. I'm going to mat this. We'll back up just a hair. Okay, once you get the sides down so the glue is all attached, you can run your spatula over there. So let's go ahead, let's get our matting done with what I just cut, and then we'll go back. So the front, now as you can see, I'm leaving the 1/8 of an inch border of black, and then there's the gold, so it looks like there's a lot more depth to it, or definition. Okay, let's get that all spread nice and flat. And and making sure we get our corners down. And then the piece that I put the dictionary paper on will slide right inside. I'm going to put this here for some contrast, so I can see the top of where I'm going. Now, one thing to mention also, when you're cutting your paper, make sure you're cutting it in the orientation that you're going to be looking at your pages, if it's pattern specific, because you don't want them to be sideways or upside down. Now there is one thing with the art glitter glue that's I had to, if you notice, I came back on and I have the tips on my glue. If you just use the tip, you really have to have the tip when you're working on paper because you might get a little bit of waviness. I got just a hair, but it'll settle down because you don't want to use a lot of it. And that's the thing with art glitter glue. So we're not going to do the back of this page yet. Well, yes, we are. You know, I do. I think that is what I cut this for. So those measurements I gave you are for the back of page 1. That was correct. So it's the last page I did not cut. So I did get just a little wavy there because I used too much glue. And then just go over with your spatula or your bone folder. That looks so cool, that crinkled paper. And I do have the mat for that page, so I'll come back and we'll get that done. Now this is the pieces I cut for the pockets, and they're 4 7/8 by 6 7/8, and I'm not, like I mentioned, I'm not going to be double matting them. Okay, I just need to cut mine, it looks like down to the 6 7/8. Oh, hold on. Somebody fell down the stairs.
What did you do?
Wow. Sorry. The fun never ends. My poor granddaughter came up to see what we're doing in the studio and she fell down the stairs. So these are actually the 6 3/8, not 7/8. I'm sorry. I'm not looking right at my measurements. By 4 7/8. So, like I said, I'm not going to double mat these. You can, of course. And one thing, you know, measure. You might want yours to be, I usually have a smaller border, but I really like the black with this showing through. There's that really awesome lined paper, great for journaling. That'd be really cute on graduation day to have the family sign the back. Kids, they'll have all their friends. They'll sign the yearbook, but here we can have them sign the family, just sign the album. That'd be really awesome. So we're going to skip this page for a minute so I can get those cut. And that's part of that page. And I debated where I cut the person off, but that's okay. We can put, I'm going to put one of the stickers across the top there. And then it won't look like the person's head was cut off. Actually, it's the female graduate. Edges are down. Nope, it's down. And then the large, I love these large polka dots. Now these are going to be great for a 4x6 picture. Now, this album also is extremely, as you can see, it doesn't look easy. It's extremely easy. So if you are a beginner, you are going to love making this, and your friends and family are going to be amazed. I did a beginner's video many years ago when I was just starting out, so it's kind of a very old video, and I've been asked to do some more beginner videos, but I'm not going to, because I really feel that all my tutorials are suitable for a beginner. You guys can do these. I know you can. There is no reason you can't. And now I'm going to go ahead with the stripes. I haven't used any stripes anywhere. Let's do some measuring again. I do have, awesome. So look through your scraps to see if you're using your, or if you maybe still have a stack of some of your other papers. I'm kind of down to the bare bones when it comes to the gold color, which is okay. Now I want to get out this plaid. We've got two different that are really cool. I also love that stripe, the very light colored, but I want to get this plaid out. Now, one thing about this, you've got, of course, the gentleman on the side, and so I'm going to cut from over here because I don't want to use the guy, but I do want to use this plaid. So let's go ahead and measure our page. So I'm measuring out to 5.5. So I'll cut my gold at 5 3/8 by 6 7/8. Okay, so I got my pieces cut. Now I did cut the guy, then I cut him off because I really wanted to use the other side of the world. Now you'll also really find this album does not take a lot of your paper. That's the other nice thing. So you can get quite a few projects done with one paper pad. And this, I would suggest 2 sticker sheets. So you have enough for, so if you have more than one person graduating, you can make quite a few of these and keep them for gifts. Okay, and we'll put the plaid on this one. Time to clean the tips, that's for sure. That's the only reason I'm having problems with my tips. So my bottles get used daily, and I go weeks without soaking them in hot water and cleaning them. So don't do that. At least clean them maybe once every 2 weeks, depending on how much you use them. I like that. So now we've got the mat here. I did cut the mats because I took them out. Let's double check how these are going to fit. I definitely will cut that down. That's not one of them. To tell you what happened, I just now hit the keyboard and I totally lost the walkthrough and what I just did on this cover. So let me show you again. I don't know what key I hit, and I'm so sorry. So I just looked up and it was gone. Sometimes that happens with long books. So anyway, on the cover here on the front page, this was the cut apart sheet, and I cut all these apart. So I'm going to walk you through here. And I took the keys and mounted them on black, and I just tucked in some cards, and I'd gone through and shown all this. There's the mat, and this was just a leftover piece, so I stuck it inside. And then I put an achievement sticker here on the back from the sticker sheet. This was that fold over mat we made, and then I just used the gold on the bottom. And again from the cut aparts, and I just did the gluing on 3 sides to make a tuck spot. And these are great to put those wallets, the smaller pictures from graduation in. And I did the same thing with the leftover mats. Place to write, and then a full back. This was that person I cut off, so I used the sticker and just put it across the top, and then I put both of those photo mats inside here, and you can actually fit a couple more. So that is the inside, and I'm just really upset because I'd gone through and did this whole cover on film, and it's not there. So these are from the cut apart sheet. These are all just cut aparts, and I layered them. And I used a piece of the gold for behind for some color. And this graduate, I just took my phone folder and rounded it, and we glued it down. And I was at the point where it's getting the enamel dots, and that's when I looked over and my computer I knocked it off. I feel so terrible. And this was cut up off there also, but I don't think I'm going to use it there. I think I'll put it right here on the front. Go your own way. Oh, maybe I won't. One of them's it's kind of upside down. Oh, it's kind of cute though, the way it goes upside down. So I think I will use it. That's neat the way they did that. I'm really sorry. This is the first cover I've done in a long time where I felt it was turning out really well. I was on the camera, and I must have hit it with the box. But there's still another tutorial on this box, and I did it last year. So if you need to see it, it's on my YouTube, and I've done it live on our scrapbookers. So I like that. Now these are from the sticker sheet. This was just a rolled up piece of the leftover paper, so I made the scroll, wrapped a piece of black around it, and now I was just going to go in here and put some of the pop dots to add some dimension in different areas. And I do like to use my adhesive with it. So we are getting some of the cover still in. These are left over from fall. And then one thing I want to do, I'm just adding a couple, let's see, here and there. Kind of add some more color. Let's grab, if you have some glossy accents. So this is the end of my album, so I can do this now. So I want to fill in this little emblem here with the glossy accents. And it does need to dry overnight. I like to leave them to dry untouched. Okay, and then I'm just going to go through and get the bubbles out. I'm going to do the paper. So if you haven't used glossy accents, it will dry hard and it will give it a glass-like finish. Which is permanent, and it's pretty cool because it adds more dimension. You could even do this whole globe, but I really like that matte look. So we'll just do the paper, make sure we fill everything in. And there is our graduation album. And I hope that you can follow through okay. Like I said, this tutorial gave me a little challenge just because I just don't know why. And I apologize about the part not being recorded, but it's pretty simple. Just making sure we're all smoothed out, and I hope you enjoy making this album in a box because it's so much fun. Like I said, great for beginners. It looks like it's a very complicated album, but it's not, and makes for a wonderful graduation gift. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you on our next tutorial.